Who do you think could ruin your life? The fastest, a stranger, an ex-lover, or someone from your own family? In today's story, I'll walk you through a mind-bending journey of what happened when I stood up for my pregnant niece and ended up being dragged into a never-ending nightmare by my own sister-in-law. From insults at the dinner table to anonymous calls that destroyed a career from CPS reports to manipulative mind games targeting my daughter, all leading to a legal war that nearly broke me. This isn't just a story about a broken family, it's a battle for truth, for dignity, and for the right to be a mother. Chapter 1. The First Drop. I never thought a baby shower could shatter an entire family, like a sheet of glass hit with a brick. But then I realized when your deranged sister-in-law starts calling her own niece a leg spreader at Sunday dinner, anything is possible. Sophie is my niece. She's 23, beautiful, smart, and pregnant with her first child. The pregnancy came from a serious relationship until her boyfriend vanished the moment she told him. Sophie didn't cry or throw a tantrum. She just tightened her grip on her purse strap and started planning for single motherhood. I thought at the very least the family would support her. I was incredibly naive. Patricia, my sister-in-law, is the living definition of a gold digger. She married my brother for money, addicted to luxury brands, and treats her kids' enrollment in private schools like some kind of social climbing strategy. So when she heard Sophie had been dumped, instead of offering comfort, she sat dead center at the family dinner table and coldly announced, "Good girls don't get abandoned." Then turned to me and asked, "What kind of message is this sending to her younger cousins?" I said nothing. Because Patricia's father, the man who signs my paychecks every month, was sitting right at the head of the table, sipping his wine without so much as a raised eyebrow. That was the first moment I realized Patricia wasn't just a venom-tongued woman. She was powerful, and from there things only got worse. Patricia began calling Sophie a leg spreader not behind her back, but to her face in front of everyone. She deleted Sophie from all the family group chats and started spreading rumors that she had seduced a married man. Whether it was true didn't even matter, because nearly everyone chose to believe it. The only thing that spreads faster than gossip is silence. Still, Sophie endured. She had a steady job at a hospital, a place she loved and poured her heart into, until that one morning. I was having breakfast when my phone rang. It was Sophie. Her voice was trembling, breath catching in panic. "Auntie, Patricia, she just called my supervisor. Told them I'm having a delusional pregnancy and might be a danger to newborns. They cut my hours down to one shift a week. I had just lost my health insurance. I'm 7 weeks away from giving birth." I sat there frozen, spoon in hand, heart thudding like a war drum. I had stayed quiet for far too long. I had watched Patricia squeeze every bit of air out of Sophie for months and done nothing. But that phone call, that was the final drop. I made a decision. If Patricia wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. And the upcoming family gathering hosted at her own house would be where I'd begin. But I wasn't going in alone. I had a secret weapon, my daughter Emma, 8 years old, brilliant, and more aware of adult cruelty than most grown-ups. And trust me, she was more than ready. Chapter 2. The Explosive Baby Shower. I taught Emma how to tie her shoes, how to recite poems in class, and now how to expose a toxic adult in front of 40 uninvited family members. 2 weeks before the family gathering every evening after school, we sat on the couch like two secret agents planning a classified mission. I explained it to Emma in the simplest words a child could understand. Sometimes adults lie, and sometimes the truth needs to be said, even if it makes people uncomfortable. She nodded. She understood more than I expected. Emma had seen Patricia mock Sophie before. She once asked me why grown-ups could be so cruel. I didn't have a good answer, but I had a plan. On the day of the party, I dressed to the nines, holding a giant baby shower cake with pink icing that read, "Congratulations, Sophie and baby." Patricia opened the door. Her face stretched into one of those fake smiles, like a poorly glued-on mask. But when she saw Sophie standing behind me, one hand resting on her 8-month pregnant belly, her expression shifted instantly to full-blown panic mode. "She wasn't invited," Patricia hissed. Surprise, I shouted like a birthday party host on a kid's TV show. This is a baby shower for Sophie. I marched right in, pulling both Sophie and the cake into the living room, where 40 relatives stood frozen like statues. Patricia lunged after me, her claws digging into my arm like a cat from hell. Get out of my house or I'll call the police. Emma has a poem prepared, I said calmly, making eye contact. She's been practicing for 2 weeks. Before Patricia could unlock her phone, Emma was already in the center of the room, holding a piece of paper folded into thirds. Her little voice rang out clear and strong. Patty. Patricia lied to Sophie's job. Now she can't be a nurse. Patty calls her names I can't say. Patty made her lose her money. Please help Sophie. A suffocating silence swallowed the room. Every pair of eyes turned toward Patricia, including her husband. That man, my brother, looked like he'd just been hit with an ice bucket. Sophie stood still, hands clasped in front of her eyes, glassy but refusing to cry. Patricia stammered like a fish out of water, then turned and bolted up the stairs, the sound of her heels pounding the marble like a retreating army. And suddenly, the living room transformed into a real baby shower. Someone ran out to grab a gift. Someone else opened their wallet to help Sophie with hospital bills. Apologies poured out of people's mouths, like I had never heard before. Sophie, the girl, who had been called a leg spreader, was now the radiant center of love and support. I looked over at Emma, who was beaming, and I knew, even though Patricia wasn't finished with us, we had just won a major round. But I underestimated just how vicious Patricia could be. 3 days later, at 7 a.m., who showed up at my door? CPS. Chapter 3. The Price to Pay. I was never afraid of a knock at the door until that morning. 3 knocks, not rushed, not gentle. They landed at 7 a.m. like hammers on my spine. Emma was still asleep. I was still in my pajamas hair, a tangled mess that could scare off wildlife. I opened the door and saw 2 people. One of them was a woman in a light blue shirt, name tag clipped to her collar, Victoria, CPS investigator. Clutched in her right hand was a folder thicker than Emma's entire 3rd grade homework stack. We've received a report of a child being exposed to inappropriate sexual content, she said in a flat tone like she was reciting a muffin recipe. I froze. Then I saw it. The diamond tennis bracelet on Victoria's wrist. I'd seen it before. 2 months ago at a tea party at the country club, Patricia had proudly flashed it, saying it's from my dear friend Victoria. I just never thought that Victoria would be the one standing on my doorstep this morning with a clipboard and the same sickly floral perfume Patricia always wore. Victoria interviewed Emma alone in the living room. I wasn't allowed to sit next to my own child. They took a photo of the poem Emma had read at the baby shower. They analyzed every shaky, purple, crayon-written word like it was a national security threat. From the kitchen, I could hear Victoria asking things like, "Who taught you those words?" And Emma, in her soft voice, replied, "Aunt Patricia said that about Sophie." But the woman kept pressing. Same question, different phrasing. Again. And again, I sat in the kitchen, teeth-clenched hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, heart pounding like a drum in my throat. 3 days later, I received a formal notice requiring me to undergo a psychological evaluation. When I went to the county office to fill out endless forms about my parenting, guess who I saw at the front desk? Patricia. Handing over a thick file to the receptionist. When our eyes met through the glass divider, she smiled faintly, then mouthed the words, "For Emma's sake." That night, Emma crawled into my lap, her eyes dull with confusion. The lady kept asking if you taught me bad words about, bodies, she whispered, and she asked about the word leg spreader. I told her Aunt Patricia said it, but she kept asking if you told me to say it, if you made me read it. I didn't wait another second. I called my lawyer. After I told him everything, there was silence on the other end. Then he said one sentence that sent a chill down my spine. They're building a statement. They're trying to turn Emma into evidence against you. In that moment, I knew this wasn't about an annoying sister-in-law anymore. This was a war, a systemic, coordinated war. And Patricia, she had just weaponized the government. As for me, losing was not an option. Chapter 4. When Patricia took control. I used to think losing my job would be the worst thing that could happen. Turns out losing the trust of your own daughter is what really takes your breath away. After the psych evaluation, after countless meetings with CPS and endless stacks of paperwork, I started to realize Patricia didn't just want to humiliate me, she wanted to replace me. That morning, I got a call from Emma's school office. The teacher spoke in the same tone one might use when announcing lunch options. We've been informed that Aunt Patricia has been added as Emma's emergency contact in the updated files. I gritted my teeth. Who gave permission for that? Of course, the response was a familiar one. We don't get involved in family matters. We just want what's best for the student. Patricia wasn't just worming her way into school files. She created a Facebook group called Prayers for Emma with over 100 members. All people she knew from PTA boards, church circles, and the kind of bored folks who thrive on secondhand drama. The content, a steady drip feed of fear-mongering about a mother spiraling out of control, possibly endangering her young daughter. Each comment was a dagger, praying for Emma to be in a safer environment. We can't just sit back and do nothing. God bless Aunt Patricia for speaking out bravely. I read every single word in silence. I couldn't defend myself because any attempt to post a rebuttal would be screenshot and labeled as aggressive behavior from an unstable parent. Even Sophie tried to speak up on my behalf, sharing how Patricia had called her boss and sabotaged her job. But Patricia's lawyer moved fast, grabbing screenshots, filing them into the CPS case, and labeling it all as coordinated harassment from unstable relatives. While I was drowning in legal paperwork, court evaluations, and school phone calls, Patricia made her move. She walked right into the hospital where Sophie was having a prenatal checkup, holding a bouquet of lilies and bringing with her a local blogger who specialized in family healing stories. No matter what happens, family comes first, she said, loudly, ensuring every nurse and doctor within earshot could hear her. Cameras panned across the room. A post went viral shortly after captioned, "The gracious aunt still caring for her niece, despite painful misunderstandings." I wanted to scream, but I knew the more I reacted, the deeper the trap became. The next day I arrived at Emma's school to pick her up, but the front office stopped me at the door. "We've been advised to enforce a 100-foot distance for now," they said. And I watched as Patricia walked right up to my daughter, smiling sweetly, and said, "Sometimes adults just need a little time to think, sweetheart." Emma turned her head, tears brimming in her eyes, and whispered, and I couldn't go to her. I couldn't hold her. I have never felt so powerless in my life. Chapter 5, Sophie Strikes Back. While I was drowning in lawyers' paperwork, school meetings, and the suffocating stares of people who thought they knew better, Sophie called me. But her voice wasn't soft or fragile anymore. It was steady, sharp. And then she said the one thing that made me stop dead in my tracks, mid-collapse. "Auntie, maybe we can't beat Patricia the normal way. But I have something." Turns out while Patricia had been waging psychological warfare, Sophie had been quietly collecting. Not just journaling. Recording, drafting, documenting. She had saved everything in an old email account no one even knew existed. She had a full list of incidents. Nights when Patricia showed up at her door, uninvited instances where neighbors suddenly avoided her after someone whispered rumors. Mysterious dropped shifts at work right after anonymous calls. And then Sophie played a recording for me. She had captured it in the hospital break room during what Patricia thought was just another gloating session. Patricia's voice rang out crystal clear. "That little girl, I'll make sure she knows what it feels like to have the whole world turn its back. She embarrassed the family fine. Let's see how she handles having no career left to embarrass with." Short, precise. Each word a needle slicing through Patricia's mask of charity and virtue. I was shaking not just from anger, but from hope. After months of being cornered, of only being able to defend, we finally had something undeniable. The next day, Sophie and I filed everything in court. The voice memo, the timeline of harassment, The list of witnesses, even the social media posts Patricia had so carelessly made public. One in particular stood out, posted 2 weeks before the baby shower. It read, "Kids these days shouldn't be hearing words like leg spreader." Some people really have no idea what being a mother means. The court took notice, and for the first time, Patricia's lawyer looked rattled. This war wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but for once we weren't playing defense anymore. This time we were going on the attack. Chapter 6. Courtroom and Confessions. The day I stepped into court, it felt like walking into a battlefield. No weapons, no armor, just a thick folder of evidence and Sophie's hand clenched tightly in mine. Across the courtroom, Patricia sat like a poised swan floating on still water. Hair neatly tied, beige dress, expressionless face. She even wore the friendship bracelet Emma once made her, as if to scream, "I'm the one this child once loved." My attorney began with the evidence, undeniable, unfiltered. The voice memo, the drafted emails, the prematurely posted social media entries, and the internal login records from the hospital proving Patricia's husband's account had been used to access Sophie's work schedule just before an anonymous report was filed. Each document was projected onto the large screen. Each piece of evidence was a punch shattering Patricia's porcelain mask of perfection. And then something no one expected happened. Patricia's mother, Mrs. Henderson, stood up and asked to testify. No one stopped her. No one even breathed. Her voice was raspy but steady. She spoke of Patricia's older sister, the one cast out of the family years ago for getting pregnant out of wedlock. She spoke of how Patricia, once a tearful child, grew into a teenager who declared, "I'll never disappoint you like she did." Then she said the one sentence that made the entire courtroom fall silent: "I raised a daughter who believes love must come with punishment." And now I see her using punishment to define love. I can't stay silent any longer. Patricia was frozen. Her hands trembled, rubbing invisible hand sanitizer into her palms midair. Her face turned pale, eyes wide like she'd just seen herself in a mirror for the first time. She was no longer the elegant woman. She looked like someone seconds away from a total breakdown. The judge called for a recess. Sophie and I sat quietly in the hallway. We didn't speak. It didn't feel like victory, not yet. It felt more like finally breathing after months trapped inside a burning car, like someone had smashed open the door and pulled us free. When the court reconvened, the judge ordered mandatory psychological evaluations for all parties. For the first time, the system wasn't siding with the one who shouted louder. It was siding with the one who had proof. The war wasn't over, but we had taken a step forward, a big one. Chapter 7. The Cost of Justice. Winning in court isn't like in the movies. There's no background music, no slow claps, just exhaustion and legal bills draining what's left of my bank account. The results of the psychological evaluations confirmed what everyone knew, but no one had dared put in writing. Patricia was obsessively fixated on moral family values to a pathological degree. Me, I was diagnosed with acute anxiety hypervigilance after months of being hunted like prey, and Emma, my poor daughter, suffered the most. The doctor's note read, "Displays signs of trust instability and fear of abandonment." I lost my job, not because I was incompetent, but because Patricia's father, my boss, called me into his office, laid down a stack of performance reports, and simply said, "I need employees focused on work, not entangled in personal drama." A few hours later, I left the building with a cardboard box filled with personal items. No one said goodbye. Honestly, I didn't want them to. I just wanted to disappear. 3 days after the hearing, Sophie gave birth to Grace, a healthy, beautiful baby girl. I was the only one by her side in the delivery room. Patricia didn't dare show her face at that hospital again. Despite the scars, Emma smiled when she held baby Grace for the first time. She looked up at me and asked Mom, "Is it going to be peaceful now?" At home, I couldn't answer. I just held her tight. Patricia was issued a no-contact order with Sophie's workplace and was only allowed to see Emma under supervision. But she still tried to control the narrative. She posted photos of Emma visiting her house with captions like, Family is where healing begins, no matter what others say. I didn't feel rage anymore, just fatigue, like I'd braced against the storm for so long. My body forgot what calm felt like. Justice eventually did arrive, but the cost, my job, my money, my reputation, my sleep, and my daughter's childhood. I had won, but I wasn't sure what was left of me. Chapter 8, Rising from the Ashes. I didn't know what starting over at 40 would look like until I found myself standing in a retail store wearing a blue uniform, bowing my head slightly and saying, "Welcome, how can I help you today?" No more office, no more title. Just me, a plastic name tag, and long nights, dragging myself home, sore and silent. But at least now I no longer lived in fear that someone would call CPS just because I didn't smile for the camera. Sophie healed slowly but steadily. She transferred to a new hospital, one untouched by Patricia's husband. She works part-time so she can care for baby Grace. Watching her hold that child in their new bedroom, I knew I had done the right thing. Emma started sleeping through the night again. No more jumping at knocks on the door. No more shrinking against the wall when the phone rang. She doesn't ask about Patricia anymore. But when I tell her everything's okay now, she still looks at me like she's weighing whether or not to believe it. I've started taking online courses in human resource management. The pay isn't great, but I want to help people like me, people swallowed by the system simply because they didn't have enough money or power to fight back. My family, well, we're not the same anymore. We celebrate Lunar New Year separately now. Christmas separately. No one mentions the other side. My parents look older, heavier, like they're carrying years we didn't see before. But we still have each other. And somehow, that's enough. Even in the ashes, I know one thing for certain: I didn't abandon the truth. Chapter 9, An Open Ending. Bent, but not broken. 1 year after the final court hearing, I found myself sitting in the elementary school auditorium, heart pounding like I was the one about to perform. But no, today was Emma's day. She walked onto the stage, her hair in pigtails, wearing the floral dress she'd picked out herself. She stood tall, chin up, and read a short poem about courage. No trembling, no hesitation, just her clear, steady voice echoing across the room. I sat in the front row next to Sophie Grace, asleep in her arms. Far in the back, in the last row, Patricia was there too, still under court-ordered supervision. She said nothing, didn't try to steal the spotlight, didn't post anything on social media afterward. And me, I just looked at Emma and thought, we're not the same family we once were. We are bent, wounded, scarred, but we're still here, still breathing, still loving. In the end, no one truly wins, but at least I didn't break. I lost my job. I lost money. I even lost a piece of my daughter's childhood. But I never lost my reason to fight. Patricia didn't disappear. She still exists, still lives in her carefully crafted world. But she no longer holds power over us. As for me, Sophie, and Emma, we're not perfect, but we're real. If you've ever felt like the world was against you, if you've ever had to battle someone who knew how to manipulate everything, you are not alone. And if this story touched something inside, you leave a comment, share your thoughts. Because somewhere out there, someone might just need a little bit of light.